online to our community information meeting, the Port of Nome modification community information meeting. We're so glad that you have taken the time to join us and spend a little time with us this evening for us to share some information with you, as well as to get some feedback from you. And we will move forward. Just a little to go over the agenda tonight. We're going to do a couple of opening remarks, invite some opening remarks. We have some with planned remarks. We have a presentation for you to give you an update again on where we are at with the current design phase for the Port of Nome modification project. We'll have a quick break after that presentation, and then we'll have a full hour for open discussion where we invite everyone joining us online and you in the room to ask questions or raise any issues or concerns that you have. So we look forward to a great night tonight. I wanted to make sure everyone in the room and online was all right and okay with us. We would like to record the meeting this evening on our virtual WebEx platform. That gives us a great record of the meeting, and it also allows us to post it later on. We'll have it probably up before the end of the week. We can make a YouTube video of the meeting, and then we'll post it on our website so people can go back to it. Those people who may not have been able to join us this evening can come and look at the presentation and hear the same information from the community. So with no objections, we'll move forward. I do want to give a couple of helpful hints to the folks that have joined us online and with WebEx, but also for those of you in the room, because this is a virtual meeting and we want to make sure that everyone feels equally involved, whether they're in the virtual world or here with us today. For those that are in the virtual room, this is welcome to WebEx. This is your WebEx screen. I just want to point out a couple of features, and you may see this, those of you online, as we move through. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find the mute and unmute buttons. For those people who are joining solely from their phones, you may use your mute and unmute on your phone, or you can press *6 to mute yourself and *6 to unmute yourself. We are asking people who are online. We've shown the screen here of the audience here, but unless you're speaking, to keep your video off. In order for us to save bandwidth, that not only helps with the visuals, but it also helps with the audio quality. Down at the right-hand corner of your screen, you have two options, participants and chat. If you click on the participants, that will give you a list of the participants at the meeting today. And then the chat allows you to chat questions, or if you didn't hear something, or would you like a speaker to speak up, you can chat any of that. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll make sure that those in the virtual world are being able to, again, have equity in their participation. I forgot, there's the unmute and unmute. We have all these fun little qualities here, participants, and then of course chat. All right, tips for communicating. This goes for both our virtual participants as well as those of us here that are live. Because we're in a hybrid meeting, we ask that if you do have any questions or you would wish to speak, that you introduce yourself. And if you are comfortable, you can also provide your affiliation or the group that you're with or who you may be representing, so that we know who's speaking. And again, we can keep a record of the questions that are being raised. Again, we remind everyone to mute themselves so we don't have feedback during the presentation, the chat. Oh, and then there's also excuse me, one last thing. There's also the ability to raise your hand. Those of you who are digitally, those of you in the room, obviously, if you have a question, please raise your hand and be patient with us, and we will make sure that we get around to everyone. We do have a mic, so we will ask you to to be on the mic when you have a question as well, and so that everybody online can hear. But digitally, you can raise your hand online as well, and if you do have a question, we'll get to you. Again, we're going to have a full hour for discussion after the presentation. So before we begin introductions, I'd like to invite some opening comments from the City of Nome. Mr. Mayor Hanlon, would you like to open us up and provide us with some comments? Thank you.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and it's great to see members of our community that are actually in the room. If there are those that are online too, thank you for joining in this session. We're excited that we're moving forward with this project. Many people think this is something that just got concocted in the last year or two. That's not true. In 1985, when we threw the last rock in the water for the existing causeway, it was known that an extension would be necessary in order to fully see the benefits of the portion that had been built. Over the years, we have seen a great benefit from the current causeway, but as many of you who are here in town will have noticed, it's overrun and there's just not enough space to be for all the people that have reason to come into the community. This port doesn't just serve Nome, it serves the region. It will also serve the state, and it will also serve the nation to a greater extent as it is improved and designed to the more ideal length and depth so that vessels from a variety of users can actually pull in and see the benefit of it. The Corps and the city have gone through an extensive community process in the development of this project, and it is there. Obviously, there are folks maybe in the room and others along the way that have had some questions, concerns, don't support the project, while there are others that are on the opposite side. And I think that in the process, we've tried to pull folks that have had concerns to get those concerns addressed and mitigated, so that we don't want this to have negative impacts on people. We want it to be as positive as it possibly can for the community and for our residents, whether using the facilities for getting your vehicle or your house or whatever that might be coming in on a barge, whether you're using the port facility to exit for your subsistence hunting resources and activities. We need to have everything coexist in this process, and we've I think made the best effort along the way to ensure that we all can cohabitate when it comes to this particular improvement for the community. So with that, I just want to thank the Corps folks for coming up here yet again to provide some updates to the community on where things are at. The project is still there's still some design activities that are ongoing, but we're hopeful that the schedule will start to gel, and that we can soon see some actual activity on the ground, and not so much on paper and for the virtual world as things are going on presently. So again, thank you for coming, and this is an opportunity. It's not your final opportunity. If you do still have questions, comments, we still want to hear from you, and we want to make sure that they're addressed. So thanks for coming, and look forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hanlon. We'd also like to provide the opportunity. We know that we have some tribal members and tribal representatives here with us this evening. And although we didn't ask anyone to provide formal opening statements in recognition of the fact that these lands have been the ancestral lands of several Alaska Native community members for time immemorial, we would like to provide an opportunity for any tribal member, if they so desire, to come up and make an opening comment. I'll just give a moment if anybody would like to come up and make a comment, opening statement. Or, that's right, or online. Well, seeing none, again, I just wanted to make sure we made that opportunity available. The last is the Army Corps of Engineers. I will make just a few opening statements. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. We know this is your community and that the project that is we're talking about today is happening in your community. We are here to support you. That is what the Army Corps of Engineers mission is to ensure that we are supporting the communities of Alaska with their water resources needs. And so our time is for you. We're here tonight to ensure that we are doing our due diligence and meeting the needs of the community. And we want to make sure that we are open and transparent in what we are doing in your community. And so we thank you for inviting us to be here. We thank you for hosting us and allowing this opportunity. And we look forward to hearing from everyone later on during this meeting after the presentation. So I am going to go through and read names and give you just a brief introduction of the team that is working and coordinating and cooperating together on this project. I never really introduced myself. My name is Kendall Campbell. I am the Alaska District Tribal Liaison, as well as the Public Involvement Specialist for the district. And really my primary role is to ensure that wherever the Army Corps is working, in whatever capacity or whatever mission area we are doing around the state of Alaska, that we are meeting our government to government and trust responsibility to the Alaska Native people that we serve. I will also go through and people can wave. We have lovely pictures here, but many of the folks that are on this page are here in person. So you know the team members, and then those of you online, if you want to come off and show yourselves into the virtual world or just raise your hand and wave, we welcome that as well. So on the phone tonight, I believe I saw John Blees, the city engineer. Yep, there he is, thumbs up. I see it. I don't think we can see it on the screen, but he gave us a thumbs up. We also have Mr. Mike Rouse. He is the Environmental Resource Chief for the Army Corps of Engineers.
Good evening, everybody.
Very nice. Thank you, Mike. In the room tonight, we have Merlin Peterson, who is the design lead for the Army Corps of Engineers. We also have in the room Ms. Joy Baker, the Port Director. I think everybody probably knows who Joy is. Hosting us on the virtual web is Mr. John Bugnett from the Public Affairs Office from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Good evening, everyone.
Also in the room, Mr. Brian Hudson, the Principal Senior Engineer for PND. Carl Holtz, Principal Senior Engineer for CRW. If you're on the line, you can wave or say hi. Again, I don't think he's on the line or was able to join us tonight, but Mr. Chris Floyd, he is our biologist in the environmental resource sections of the Army Corps of Engineers. He's been with this project probably longer than most of us here at the Corps. In the room, Mr. Jathan Garrett, the project manager. He will be doing a lot of speaking tonight. As well as in the room, Ken Morton, the utility engineer for NJUS. I practice it. And Mr. Andy Rostovsky, civil engineer for CRW. I said it right. All right. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Jathan to begin the presentation and talk to you a little bit about a project and the updates.
Thanks, Kendall. Very excited to be with you tonight. I think we did our first public engagement about a year ago, and that was all over, I guess, WebEx last time. So we're very grateful to kind of put some faces with names that we've talked to before online, and then to actually be here in person and participate in this event with you. This slide lays out kind of the hierarchy of how all these decisions are being made, of how the design is being accomplished, and how our day-to-day works. If you'll allow me a minute, I guess it would have been 2020 towards the end of it. I was working on a missile defense project for the Corps of Engineers, and leadership came and asked me if I'd have any interest in going to Nome. And I was like, well, what's in Nome? I didn't really know anything about Nome other than Bering Sea Gold, whatever it's called. And they told me about this project, and sounded challenging. Sounds like, I mean, I've never done something like this, this big going into the ocean. So as I thought to myself, I was like, man, you know, all my projects usually define some crazy milestone in personal life, and this one will have my daughter graduating high school and onto college. It's a big project. It's required weekly meetings for the past 2 years, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, multiple phone calls besides that when we're not scheduled for meetings. So I've had the pleasure working with Joy and her team with P&D and CRW for the past 2 years with Merlin and his design team, and it's been a pleasure to get to this point. We've just reached the 95% milestone. And you know, it's pretty amazing to see what a group of people can do when they're united in this effort. But what we call the local service facilities, the LSFs, this is the items that make your port work. This is the docks, the utilities, the roadway, the bridges, etc. The GNF, the general navigational features, that's the causeway itself, that's the dredging, that's the breakwaters. So that's what will be, that's what, as we go through this, you'll want to keep in mind that there's GNF and there's LSF. And the LSF has been the responsibility of the port and NJUS, and P&D has been designing the ports and the roadways, and CRW has been designing, the utilities and working in harmony there with NJUS for what those requirements are going to be. While the Corps of Engineers has been working specifically on the causeway and the dredging, etc. And so it's a lot to wrap your head around, especially here and as fast as we can get this presentation done. But that's what makes up this project is a partnership between us and the city, the local non-federal sponsor, and also shows kind of how much communication goes back and forth between us and the city, and between Joy and myself specifically, nonstop. I started doing some research and found out the first time the Corps touched the harbor began in 1919. The port was last upgraded in 2006 when the dredging was taken down to negative 22 mean lower low water. This project is authorized for construction, and we're at 2020. Now each year there's a new authorization that comes out, and 2020 was where the Port of Nome specifically was listed for construction and authorized for construction. But this will provide support to Nome users as well as the region. And under the WRDA 2000 or Section 206 of WRDA 2007, it allows for navigation project in Alaska to be justified based upon community viability, public health and safety, access to subsistence resources, and cultural significance, which obviously is all around this region. The feasibility report, the study was completed in March of 2020, and our design agreement was executed in June 2021. And our first design meeting was held a few weeks later in July, where we got the LSF and the GNF teams together. And we've had 1 to 2 meetings a week since June of 2021. I hear the question often, why Nome? Well, This is the United States' only deep water port in the Arctic that has this kind of infrastructure and support, this kind of development around the city, around the port, et cetera, and around the region. Critical link. I think everyone's aware of the importance of Nome to this whole entire region. The existing port facilities is overcrowded and has insufficient draft for heavier and larger and deeper drafting vessels to come in, often having to lighter off of the harbor itself, and creates an unsafe environment for those that are lightering and creates more time for delivery and shipments of goods. This proposed project, this modification, looks to improve support for multiple maritime missions that include cargo transportation, search and rescue, emergency and oil spill response, as well as natural resource exploration. And how we're going to accomplish that objective is to reduce the draft limitations that is in the current outer harbor, increase the dock space, and increasing the navigational area of the outer harbor. To accomplish this modification or this project, which we call the modification project, we've broken the project into 3 phases. The first phase we call the West Causeway Extension, which we'll be awarding in the spring of 2024. Phase 2 will be awarding in 2025, and we call that the basin dredging. That's where we take the outer harbor out to -40 and the -28 within the deep water basin. Phase 3 will be the east water construction. That's where we go and demo the existing breakwater that's out there, expand or dredge the remainder of the phase 2 areas, as well as the East Causeway construction. What I do point out usually here, let me turn on this little laser. Hope everyone can see that. Is when I talk about phase 3 having dredging, that's this area right here between the existing breakwater and the new one. So that one has to be taken down to that -28. But today we're going to be specifically focused on phase 1 of this project. Let me turn the time over to Merlin real quick to dive deeper into the GNF features of phase 1.
I'll just briefly go over some of the phase 1 design features. You can see the major components are going to include, the removal of the existing stub breakwater and the removal of the armor and B layers of the existing causeway to facilitate the causeway extension. The causeway extension itself will be another significant component of the expansion project, and the L-shaped dock, deep water dock. Later, the utility extensions and upgrades. What you see here is a general cross-section of the causeway extension itself. The extension will be, as you can see on the page, 3,480 feet. Extension cross-section is going to be very similar to that has been implemented for the existing causeway. Some differences in the new cross-section is a lighter seaward armor stone. That's the A1 with a 18 ton size, and smaller secondary B stone, B1 stone, and C1 stone. Also, there was an increase to the harborside armor rock. That's the A2 stone that you can see here, with a average size of 12.25 tons, and the associated B2 and C2 stone. You also see that the core of the cross section includes the filter material F and E fill materials. Okay, now I'm showing the anticipated haul route and staging areas that will be utilized in the anticipated contract. One thing to note is that we are trying to, as much as possible, eliminate a lot of the larger heavy vehicle traffic that will be going through town and utilizing the truck or the bypass road to facilitate movement of stone and other materials while not using the existing city streets. So generally, we're going to be considering most of the material coming from the Cape Quarry, and that would be the Nome Council Highway, but the opportunity for other materials to be sourced from different locations, such as the E and F fills and filter material, could come from other areas. Thus, the use of the Teller Highway and other area roads. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Brian Hudson of P&D, and he'll discuss the dock features.
Thanks, Merlin. I'm Brian Hudson, and principal engineer at P&D Engineers and the design lead for the dock portion, excuse me, of the local service facilities. Just a quick overview of the project here. Again, we're just focused on phase 1 here, which will be extending the causeway, as Merlin said, out another 3,500 feet approximately, and adding an additional 2,000 feet of new dock space for the Port of Nome, which will be much needed and I'm sure much used. So the general design for the new dock is going to be very similar to the existing dock that you guys have. If you're familiar with City Dock, West Gold Dock, and Middle Dock, it's the same basic design, built of flat web sheet piles, PS 31s and PS 27.5s, arranged in an arc shaped pattern with tail walls and anchor walls that anchor the structure back into the new fill and the new 10 acres of storage facilities that will be available at the port once this is completed. Design loads for the port, 1,500 PSF, that'll allow you guys to store multiple layers of shipping containers anywhere along the dock. 10 to 15 feet of gravel stockpiled up near the face. Work 150-ton cranes, container handlers, basically anything the port needs to use, the dock will be capable of handling. In addition to that, we'll get into, Joy, I think, is going to get into some of the vessels that are going to call at the port, but we'll be able to handle with the new fendering system that I'll get into shortly, larger class of vessels, particularly now that you have a 40-foot draft or will have a 40-foot draft at the end of phase 2. Just a brief overview of what the cross section of the dock is going to look like. Merlin went over the armor stone here on the seaside, but on the north-south portion of the dock, you will have approximately 235 feet of new uplands from the edge of the armor stone to the face of the new dock. And then on the the east-west portion of the dock, down on the L, it'll narrow up a little bit to about 195 feet. You can see it'll provide a lot of new upland storage and a lot of new space for working the dock facilities. Wanted to point out a couple of the differences that will be on this facility as opposed to the current facilities. They're the same basic structural design, but I've included some photos of a recent project that we've completed, recent open cell project that we've completed in Chignik. That's going to be very similar to what this design is. At West Gold Dock and Middle Dock and City Dock, the face of the dock still just has the circular scalloped shape at the front. For this project, we'll have an HP or steel face beam at the face of it. It gives you a nice clean berthing line, the ability to put in safety ladders, removable safety ladders in this case. You can't get away with welded down ones like you can in Chignik because of the ice. Bull rails, and also lots of tie-ups for bollards, so ships and vessels can tie off relatively easily. And then as far as the other differences between this and the other docks in the existing harbor, we are still going to use a very similar fender system to what you have out at the other 3 docks. Steel pile attached to that will be attached to the face beam that I just went over, with light duty kind of rubber fendering on there. That will get you by for most of the day-to-day traffic that comes through the port. But for the heavier vessels, the bigger cruise ships, the icebreakers that we're anticipating to be berthed here, higher capacity freight ships, and things like that, we also have these deployable pneumatic fendering that can be attached to the steel pile fenders that will be out there and easily deployed. So when you have need for larger vessels, they can be dropped out there, attached in, and used as needed. And that gets around some of the issues with having to provide either huge fender piles and fender design that has to withstand the ice, but also be flexible for the vessels that come in, and just gives the port the ability to to both operate in the heavy ice environment and deal with all the shipping and vessel traffic that it needs to. And the last slide I have here before I turn it over to Andy is just a kind of an example of what those pneumatic fenders would look like. I will turn it over to Andy at CRW to go over the utilities.
Thanks, Brian. Again, my name is Andy Horstevsky with CRW Engineering. I'm a project engineer there. We're based out of Anchorage. CRW is the designer of record for the utility expansion of the port project. When you think about utilities for a port, what we're talking about is water mains to serve hydrants along the causeway, as well as to supply water to vessels. We're talking about the ability to take in septage from vessels, to be able to take on fuel from vessels that are moored to fill the tank farms here in the community, and also to transfer fuel back to vessels for fueling those vessels or for transfer to other communities. We're also talking about electrical power, both for port operations, but also to connect vessels up to shore power in Nome. Also communication infrastructure to connect those vessels, and high mast lighting to be able to see what's going on out there. Talk a little bit about the existing utilities on the existing causeway. Currently, there's an 8-inch HDPE water main that runs out. It serves several hydrants along the way. It's set up so that it's drained each season in order to prevent freeze up in the winter. It's an uninsulated line with no service in the winter. There's also currently no sewer infrastructure on the causeway. The causeway currently has one location where fuel can be transferred and received into 3 separate fuel pipelines, transferring fuel up to city and private tank farms at the port. Those are able to take on gasoline, diesel fuel, and Jet A. The existing causeway electrical system is a 5 kV distribution system that serves those existing high mast lights that you see out there today. All of these utilities will need to be somewhat upgraded and expanded to serve the new port expansion. Let's see. There's the other guy, little red laser pointer. Right now, the causeway ends about this area right here, and you can see the considerable length of the new extension. The project intends to add new hard stands that will be located at where these orange locations are. So there's along the length of the long leg of the L, we see 2, and a third out here on the leg of the L. That's to be able to provide utility access to the various different berthing locations along the new dock and the new causeway. The utility hard stands will provide at each of those locations water, sewer, fuel access, electrical, and communication infrastructure at each of those new locations. From a water perspective, a new insulated water, circulating water loop is planned that can provide year-round water service. Each of those 3 locations will have a water service vault that'll have a hydrant, kind of a typical hydrant that you're used to seeing, as well as a vessel connection point where water can be supplied to docked vessels. Those are also equipped with drain down valves, so the system can be drained and winterized as required. Each of the 3 locations will have a wastewater discharge station. This will allow vessels to transfer wastewater. Eventually, the wastewater will be able to flow through an 8-inch force main that will convey the wastewater to a future receiving and treatment facility on shore. Marine fuel headers at each hard stand will provide for offloading and loading of fuel products, including diesel, avgas, Jet A. And each of these headers will have a pig launching equipment that'll facilitate purging and cleaning of the fuel pipelines. They'll also be set up so that instead of currently there's just a single location where fuel can be transferred. With the additional header stands, fuel can be offloaded at different locations and also transferred back to vessels for their fueling needs and for transfer to other communities in the region. Finally, electrical improvements will include an underground 3-phase distribution system with shore power pedestals at each berthing location. The pedestals will provide 480 volt power in multiple configurations, with meeting the specific requirements of the vessels that are expected to come, that come now and are expected to come in the future. Lighting improvements will consist of additional high mast poles similar to what you see now, extending all the way out along the new causeway, providing lighting for nighttime and shoulder season operation. We're also planning additional auxiliary and surplus, additional spare conduits, essentially, that will allow for expansion of communication systems as they become necessary and desirable. Here you can just see just a typical, the utilities will be buried in the roadway from 3 to 4 feet in depth, protecting them from the loading above and so here's a typical water vault. It will be a buried concrete structure that has a fire hydrant, as well as a connection point for vessels, and also a means of draining the structure. This slide shows just the typical shore power pedestal. There's a couple different configurations, but these are configured to provide different sorts of power needs and requirements, whether it be for smaller vessels or larger vessels that are expected in the future. They can supply whatever configuration of power is necessary. And this is just a typical fuel hard stand with a containment pan and big launching valve. You'll see that this is the only portion of the fuel pipeline that'll be above grade. Everything else is buried and cathodically protected. That's all I have for the expansion of utilities. I'll be around here if you have any questions. I'm happy to discuss it further after we get through this meeting. I'll turn it back over to Jathan. We're going to Joy. Here, let's flip sides and see. Battery's running low. It's okay. We're gonna make it. That looks like Joy.
Are we gonna make it? Uh-oh. Yeah, but look. Well, hopefully if it's gonna go out on somebody, it'll go out on me. Cause then we can just talk. Howdy, everyone. These guys seem pretty subdued and quiet, very mechanical. How about we change that? I'll be nice. I'll just read. I thought this was a pretty cool graphic I got a hold of a few weeks back. Marine Exchange of Alaska. I don't know if everyone's familiar with those, but they are a nonprofit organization that manages and what they call is an automated identification system, or AIS, that tracks all the vessels. I know the college has a tower that they allow public access to. You can go online to their website, mxak.com, and you can look for, I think they have a free public viewing platform. And then they also have, for commercial operators, they have a subscription system that you can sign up for, whether you're onshore or on a vessel. It's a super system. And I thought this was pretty cool that depicts the 22 season for all of the vessels shown in the legend there, which is pretty much all of our vessels, except the maybe the smaller subsistence vessels that don't typically have one. But you can see the blue is fishing, and you can see that these guys are migrating east. The majority of them pink cruise ships. So I think that, yellow tug and towing, and then cargo, you can see where the majority of that color of user type is heading to. And obviously, here's the number for the tracks down here on the bottom. Obviously, this continues to grow every year, and there's no reason to think that that's going to change in the future. So this one shows the tracks for Nome. We typically have a demographic, another colorful graphic that shows for the Bering Strait. We have that from 21 and back, but they're still working on some computer glitches, so we don't have that one yet. But this here, wanted to share it. It gives folks perspective on what it is that we see. When you see a few vessels a day, or 5 or 6 a day, and some sitting offshore, you don't get
the picture that you get from this. Here's a, some of you have probably seen this before, those of you that have seen our presentations. I like to share this because for those that aren't familiar, this reflects the typical commodity movement at the port and harbor. Obviously, you got the fuel on the lower left and far left, typically lightering in from an anchored vessel offshore, unless we're looking at a vessel, a barge, tug and barge that is targeted specifically for Nome, then they can usually come into our existing outer harbor, which is minus 22 feet, mean low water. Typically their max draft is around 18. And which is why the majority of them have to lighter, because share the facility. Of course, we got 3 docks, but it just depends on what they're moving and what they're doing as to whether or not we can do that. And, the expansion is going to change that considerably. We'll be able to push the cargo folks out of the deep water basin, bring in the deep water fuel vessels, and they will use the deep water basin.
And primarily, we can see these two causeway, 3 docks coming, primarily. All right. For those of you online, if you can hear me, we're going to do a quick recoup. I hope I'm not echoing for you. We're going to take a 5-minute break now, and we will come back and get our technology fixed. So thanks for your patience.
Hey, John, if you're there, will you let me know if you can see the PowerPoint again?
I can see it, Jason.
Perfect. Thanks for letting me know. All right, if anyone wants to take a seat, we're going to continue on. And since I don't want to brief Joyce slide, I'm gonna wait for her to come back up here. I should.
Don't touch it.
Oh, that's, you can touch.
Touch it.
Yep.
Moved it. Okay, we fired back off now. I just found out I was expected to sing a while ago when I said I was gonna liven things up. I didn't even think about it. We could do that. Yeah, maybe later, maybe later. So here's the slide I was telling you about when, the lights went out. So those of you that didn't get a good look at it, the bottom right is, when we typically have one of our large AML barge deliveries. They unload everything and then backload what they're taking south, and they pretty much, look, man, don't touch it. Don't touch it. There. Okay, now don't touch it. So as you can see, you know, there are times when we've got gravel and rock being offloaded. So you just need a larger footprint to do either of that. So I can see 5 years, 8 years down the road, the existing causeway docks being primarily export docks for our local pits and the quarry east of town. And we will skip over to the ship slide, because this is yet another component of the congestion. This is, here are the ships that frequent the causeway, the port, and obviously, you know, they've got their own footprint demand, which isn't as big as the commodities, but you can see that when we've got the passenger vessels, you know, we got buses coming in, getting them, they've got stores, they've got fuel, and they're getting water, and they're getting cargo from the airport. It's nonstop. And this is what we call primarily our foot traffic user type, because these vessels put a lot of people on the ground, and people and forklifts and excavators and dozers and loaders don't mix well. And we've been trying to manage having a lot of foot traffic in amongst our cargo and gravel exports. And we've had a couple of near misses. Thank our stars, I don't see anything wood, but we haven't had a problem. So just a lot of almost problems. So the whole idea is to, you know, not only get the deep water basin built in phase 1, but to have, once phase 3 moves the east breakwater over and makes it into a causeway and dredges that existing outer basin to minus 28 feet, will push a lot of these smaller ships you see here over to that east breakwater, and then the foot traffic will be adjacent to the beach, the east beach, and be able to walk back and forth to town. Now, the larger cruise ship tier, the one you see at the top right, that's one of the French Ponant ships. That one will probably go out to the deep water basin, as well as the Royal de Munson here on the bottom right, just by the nature of their length. But there's going to be a lot of different elements, you know, pushing tankers out there, pushing cargo barges out there, the national security fleet, larger cruise ships, Crystal Serenity, as you've seen when we have when they had the rendering up there, the mock-up. So a lot of the dynamics of how the vessels use the port are going to change, and they're a long time coming. So I'm going to jump to the staging areas. What you see here in orange is a portion of the land that the contractor is going to be using to stage rock, and they're also going to be moving rock over water. We expect them to move, I think, a lot of the larger A-stone rock by barge. They could be using a lot of their fill material. What do they call their oh, the years are catching up, and I just dropped a word. A lot of the dump scale material that they use to fill the inside guts of the breakwater before they layer the big. Brian says he don't know either. What? No, the borrow, that's one thing, but yeah, it's like filter rock. Anyway, it's a small cobble that makes the guts. Now they could bring that up there and just sweep it off the barge with the dump scale from the crane. So there's a lot of different ways they could do it, but I know they are also going to be using a road because everybody knows what the weather does around here and you can't always work from the water. So they're going to have rock and gravel, all of their sizes staged around the port area in order to continue to work. So what you see here, with the exception of West Beach, because we don't want to interfere with Bering Strait's ability to excavate and use the sand that they have the rights to off that West Beach for their their gravel operations, making concrete and also just meeting the mixed designs for the material that they bid on. This area right down in here, that's where we had oh, it's not showing up. So let me do this. This area down here, the contractor put rock down there in the last project. They had rock over in here and a lot here. This area here is what we call the Garkle building in the that was there from the first project in '85. You got a little red dot.
Laser.
Just okay. Just use the mouse, huh? Technology. So anyway, we anticipate the contractor to be using this area here, whether he utilizes the building or not, and this area up here for staging, as well as this beach area. And we've got a couple of other areas on the south end of the Air Force tank farm. Maybe an acre or so there if we can get that conveyed over before the next lunar shift in 2030. And sorry, we've been working with them for so long, and it's just a complicated issue. And then right here, we might try to sweet talk a group for an acre here. We're going to be different locations and different sites. Yeah. I have to sweet talk somebody for that one. But we anticipate having sufficient storage for rock for the contractor. This area over here would primarily be considered for phase 3 on constructing the new East Causeway, with about 75% of the stone from the breakwater that will be removed. But if they're short of space, then we can always make this available to them during phase 1 as well. I love this project. I could talk about it forever, but that's the end of my turn. Jathan, must be you.
All right, so wanted to give you a status of some of the hot topics and milestones that we're looking at. Estimated solicitation will take place this fall of 2023 with an award in early spring of 2024. Feasibility, I think everyone saw the cost, and we mentioned the last time of $490 million in the last meeting. We have updated that cost, and we are in the process of once again updating that cost. I'm not going to be sharing that publicly because that is it's non-disclosure sensitive procurement information at this stage. It's a independent government estimate, and as such remains a close hold. We do realize that there's going to be a lot of congestion at the port with ongoing operations, as well as bringing in our construction equipment. So there'll be likely meetings between not just the construction personnel, but also with the port and our contractors specifically. the operations going in and out of there. So likely a port scheduling meeting, so we know who's where and when and how we're all going to fit in the same sandbox. The haul route will be maintained. I know you saw a picture of that earlier of the proposed haul routes. One item I wanted to make clear is that we're not specifically saying where rock is coming from. That's going to be a means and methods that we're leaving up to the contractor. However, in the event that it is used, that's why we showed the area going around town. But all haul routes will be maintained with proper dust abatements in the specs, one of our typical items that we do. I know there's been a lot of talk about housing concerns. I've been in several meetings over the past 2 years. Each of the contractor that we've met with over the past 2 years and at 2 of our industry days have all indicated that they would bring in a man camp to house their personnel. And that remains the plan. We're currently working with the city right now to identify where that land will be, and we'll put that in the contract of an area that they are to use. I put down here local hire and training opportunities. Anybody can have an account and look up sam.gov and see what the latest search for the Port of Nome. You can see all things happening Nome. And so that's a resource that you can use to see when these bids hit the streets and look for opportunities to get with contractors that might have some interest there. But sam.gov would be where you would see some of that information issued. WRDA 2023 revised the cost share for the GNF to 90-10. I'm not sure everybody's aware of that. So we've gone from 75-25 to 90-10 now. The city is still responsible for 100% of docks and utilities, the LSF features that we discussed earlier in the presentation. And we anticipate to execute our construction agreement between the city and the Corps around summertime, mid-August, put down here. And we're also looking to schedule a subsistence users meeting at a time to be determined here in the next couple of months. We're also working right now on an incidental harassment authorization. I shouldn't say right now, we've been working this thing for years, it feels like. And accurately depicted years. But it is currently posted and or published, I should say. And the public comment for the documents closes on the 1st of June. And so I put the website in here for those that want to go into the NOAA site and review the documents that are there for this authorization that we're seeking for the port. This is one of my favorite part of every project. Everybody sees kind of like a drawing, but it's hard to imagine what it actually looks like. So this model that P&D ran kind of shows you a rendering, but as if we were flying an airplane over it so that we can get some eyes on it. A couple of the items have changed. This is from the 65% model quite a long time ago. And so there's a few aspects that have changed, but overall, I'd say a good chunk of it has remained unchanged. So go ahead and play this right now. This is the existing infrastructure that's out there right now. So as you were watching that, I hope nobody's surprised if we're nominated for a Grammy. That brings us to the end of the presentation. At this time, we've got Fern Spalding's online. We've got John Budnick. We'd like to open it up to any comments that anybody has. We're going to write down each of the questions as they come available. Some items that we choose not to answer this time, we'll definitely get a report out on those items. But we want to give everybody a chance to talk about this thing. Obviously, we're pretty passionate about what we've designed and developed to this stage, and invest our time and talents to get to this point at 95%. We have a microphone up here. We can walk around, and then please state your name. And then if you have a question, what the question is, we're going to record them all, and then likely issue some sort of report on the responses.
And again, we'll record it. So we'll start in the room and answer some questions in the room, and then prior to the 7 o'clock time hour, we'll move over to the questions on the WebEx. We only have one right now, but I want to make sure that we are cognizant of your time, and you know, if we can stay a little bit later, we are more than welcome. More than happy, I mean, to stay a little later to make sure we're answering all your questions, but we also want to be respectful of your time as well. All right.
Right. So real quick, for those online, if you want to start putting your chats in now, that'd be great. Actually, that microphone is not, it's not what speak real loudly. Do I have to turn this one on and that one off? Oh, there it is.
You have to act like you're a singer.
Yeah.
I work in radio.
You could get that grant.
Hi, I'm Greg Heck from Deal. And given what you said about the voluntary being open to choose for the economic permit.
Yeah.
Does the core plan to work with tribes and other local native entities when this comes about to ensure that systems users are protected?
I would say yes. Yeah, absolutely.
What does that look like?
Well, we got to see what comments come in. We need to know what comments are submitted, and then from that point, carry it forward. There's also within that IHA what we call a plan of cooperation, and that is with the native entities. That's a living document that will be revised likely. I would say I'm anticipating every year that document is updated. Right now, if you get on the IHA, you'll see the meetings that have happened in the past. That's the draft plan of cooperation. But as we get closer to getting the IHA closer to making that contract, the subsistence meeting I was talking about for the users, that's items where we'll start honing in on what communications take place, when it needs to take place, how often, frequency, who's the POCs, all of that.
Have one person, and the video is gonna stay, and then I'll.
Oh, hey, Mike, real quick. Mike, anything to add to that? Sorry, Mike Rouse.
No, I think you nailed it, Jason. It's a living document, and we wanted to make sure that, we specifically consider the concerns of the subsistence users in the area and make every effort to mitigate and to support those activities. Over.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Hello, I'm
Hello.
I'm Chuck Tornado and I look for Mark and but having said that, I can't speak to where taxes on anything. But I would think the question of what I've heard in the presentation here, that there's a lot of assumption that there's going to be increased traffic to Nome, fence breakers, and future users of the port. My concern with that is what if that doesn't happen? After the Army Corps of Engineers done building the port, Nome is stuck holding the maintenance fees and the upkeep of the port. Really small. It can't support, you know, much bigger than it already is. So my question is, how do you plan to maintain this port if for some reason, none of the stuff that is being brought up as potential shipping, potential port usage doesn't happen? I said I might be a Johnny come lately to all this, but it seems like there's a lot of assumptions made in some of these presentations here. And like the town of China that they built, that was with the whole 500 million people, and they're hoping. That was the one concern that I had with it. The other one is on your IHA, it doesn't, and I know that you would like, said that it was unnecessary, but documented cases of water falling out at the end of the port, so I would recommend that, that water should be put on the incidental. Thank you.
Yeah. And please get on that and make a public comment.
Yeah, so thank you. That one we can address. Mayor Helen, one second, so we can walk away, address the first section.
Thank you. No, that's a good question. That the character of people that are before like settled before us, I believe we're seeing so. Well, I mean, that's what we can point to is this, and we have documentation. Increases to tracks. That has come through. Or those have come through, wording only, and start going others. There are some, big assumptions that are being, that the whole through and what that is, talking to the potential user, talking to the what they're already going in recent, the last couple of years before. Forward, north, and so it's not likely that it's a cool off and start going the other way. There's a lot of stuff that's going on around us. That very much getting involved in working. Very big. We're going to start seeing very shallow ships up in this whole ship. What started is right now are the additional breakers. Right now we've got one thing in that. There have to be 2 or 3 already authorized. That are project or new construction. And basically already built. There we go. Yeah, but we have been to Coast Guard, Navy. And that's the Senator Sullivan, office in DC. We're about. So, they didn't, people. And they don't really want us to get into the defense budget. Some of this. But they did indicate that. So I think we have been very thoughtful and very deliberate, I guess, in the set going forward. It is a little bit of a build it, they shall come. The activity already increased. Graph that Joy showed you early on with all the colors of the traffic that is going by us. There's just more people that would like to be able to stop and if the depth is such that they can get it. We're also looking at one of the other things. With some of that to the port, you look at more controlled and protect the environment. I think that definite benefit. Dollars at this point in time. But certainly we count in dollars if they don't. So do it. For I mean, creation on this process works big, and we feel comfortable and confident that it's actually.
Right, I've never seen any videos of the framework, and then I'll come back to you. Hi. I won't be reflecting on that. My question related to that regarding Canada, so it's. Pointing out to you. To yours and other extension and the. Thank you, I remember, but I think that could be like something. Thank you for talking around. Sure, Mike is appearing, we're not having.
Hey, Mike, do you have comms?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine when you speak into the microphone. What was the question? I missed
Okay.
probably
Yeah, I just saw some flash up that they're getting about 10% of everything that's being said on that mic. Do you want to just come up here and say your question? Maybe that'll be easier.
Yeah, so we're talking to like, you have to back of the rock star and.
With Western Alaska facing multi-species salmon crashes, multiple species of salmon do use the Snake River, and the environmental assessment report issued in 2020 speaks to how construction noise, dredging, and causeway extension can all have the potential to disrupt salmon migration, and both salmon that are coming out of the river and that are migrating up into the river. And this activity will be going on for years. With dredging, it'll be increased dredging every year. How are the plans for the construction and the dredging accommodating the salmon to not exacerbate this crisis?
Yeah, that's a great question. And right now, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I know that this is one of the projects that we consulted with the National Marine Fisheries Service with regard specifically to essential fish habitat. And if you'd like, I can respond to your question in writing after I have time to review the document.
And we can post that on the website as well. The biologist that we had on the introduction, he is the primary. I feel like we move forward, so. Thank you, everybody here today on the program as well. My name is Addie Walker, my Brendan. Here. And I have several points that I'd like to bring up. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak and the presentation. But I'm here a little bit disappointed by the involvement and the education for health. That was extremely disappointing to see. For this category was brought up and then expect the public to have said. And protect the bill government regulations. And then some history about the area that you're talking about that was included. It's traditionally called Sunnyston, and it's a traditional use area. Artifacts are actually dug up at the beach. They were exposed and they were proving that the port of Bill was a traditional use area and was wrongfully stolen from the area. Something that was already known by our people, but of course, it was not understood by white people until it was proven. In addition, the city of Nome, but I see a lot of the presence here from the city. Keep this project going. It's from leadership from the city of Nome. I'm looking at the reading this project is not a single word. And this also disappoints me because it speaks to the history of how the city of an example of this is the 311 suite, and then there's a whole backstory to the city of Dome Square and the statues that are there. And encourage everybody to look at. But with this, I would also like to just set the tone for kind of what it's like to be an Indigenous person in the state. Find what colonization is. Settlement alone and establishing control over Indigenous peoples in the area. When I say that, because I would encourage everybody to ask if you have colonized their ancestry, and if you're a proper person to be determining, including Indigenous people.
And now to some other comments. The Bering Strait is a considerably narrow body of water and it's biologically diverse. With over 400 marine species I call it home. This waterway, if you look at the map of the globe, it's really narrow. Also huge bodies of water in the southern hemisphere where for safe migration for breeding, rearing, feeding, and rights. So with the development of a deep water port and increased traffic, this will open up the strait to larger, more destructive vessels, leading to increased need further increase, but rather protection species for animal habitat. So looking at your presentation and how this project has been viable, it's actually not viable for subsistence needs. More than 20 federally recognized tribes and communities depend on this waterway in that area right there. Lifetime being there, I think that majority of our tribal people and community members do not support this project, and that we are intentionally excluded from the decision. In addition, that the people say that we're used to talking to ourselves, and that should be a big red flag. You should be used to engaging with you. That the process of engagement and the advocacy has not been discriminatory. And with that, I'm requesting the committee associated with the fire region, meaning that more than 50% of the are reserved for Alaskan Native people. And then these sort of points they added up based on the presentation. They mentioned man camps and to be established as the result of the development of this project. Man camps lead to higher rates of Mississippi murder. Multiple decades now across Canada and US. So we have to fight it. I just wanted to put that in the note there for last week in regard to the IHA. I did mention I'm a very strict organizer. So I've been trying to bring more awareness about this to actually advertise that this assessment is trying to be passed, but encouraging to oppose the incidental harassment assessment because this includes benefits for water, that includes the hate, beluga, killer whale, Mickey whale, ribbon seal, and harbor purpose, all for the purpose of development for Northeast report extension. And this is just within 1 year of the initial development. They're anticipating an extra 5 years. Being more than 5,000 of these species. Harder to not have human rights violations. And this leads me to 3 and prior and informed consent. That should be first and foremost before the construction. You need to have 3 prior and informed consent for from federal government. To not have human rights violation. So thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate that. Encourage you to do and for everyone to really feel appropriate. Simply send us the comments in writing so that we have your word and we're not interpreting I don't want to really got, because I took several days on good with them about the problem. Since my time coming to the elected services, it's been about 4 years ago, I have actively pursued and worked towards engaging in government consultations with the tribes in this community. Very important for me, and it's important to be our commander that we not just meet on government obligations, but that we have meeting on responsibility. So that the work that we engage in may impact. And so we are committed to government conflict. Chemical that multiple occasions with federal government and federal government within the Nome area. But if you're not hearing about it, and you're not getting through those conversations, our obligation and our responsibility is to and so these conversations and time alone. And so I appreciate hearing from you that you feel that the election people have, you know, at this point to you to kind of process all of the debates that we have with conflict but clearly more important for us to say so about so I appreciate your comments. And I didn't know if anyone wanted to some of the other comments that she made, or if you wanted to, you know, we can once we get those comments.
Thanks, Kendall. I can speak to just a few of them. I'm sorry, there was a lot of echo, so it was hard to hear everything you were saying, but I'm happy to look at the written comments and respond later too. But one thing that I did think I caught was the Port Commission's meetings are all public. We don't have the capability of having like executive session like the council does. We don't have that authority. And I know that we've been putting out, blasting onto Nome announce in the radio when we have our meetings, and we try to encourage folks to come down because there's always a section in my monthly report that talks about the project. And we're always, you know, we're always wanting to hear from the public as to what they think the latest is. You know, we meet the third Thursday of every month. Council meets second and fourth Mondays. They have my report too that always talks about the project. We're, you know, more than welcoming for folks to come in and express their opinion, but we just don't get that many visitors. Once in a while, someone will pop up into citizens' comments in the council meeting and say something based on what they read, or, you know, but we don't generally have that many visitors to our Port Commission meetings. I think I just, one of them, Shane, one of our port commissioners, and yeah. Oh, I see Mark from the council too, that, you know, we just don't get that many visitors to our Port Commission meetings in chambers at City Hall on those Thursdays. But regardless of that one night per month, our office is open 5 days a week. My cell number's blasted everywhere. And we'd even do an in-person meeting if folks want more detail. Just reach out. We may not be able to answer every question you have, but we can find the answers. And we may not be able to solve all the issues, but we can work towards mitigating the impacts as we work real close with the Corps every day, literally every day, on trying to address some of the concerns. So when I made that joke earlier about us talking to ourselves, that was when there was only about 4 people in the room. And I was thinking we weren't going to see that many people and we'd be telling each other about the project when we already know about it. But no, we work for the government, the local government, they work for the federal government. We don't have a lot of opportunity to shield decisions and discussions from the public, which is why we have the public meeting requirement once a month or twice a month as the council does. So I'm probably missed a lot of the other points you made. More than willing to get them in writing and happy to meet with you or email you my thoughts on the other points.
Yeah, because that's good. We cognizant of the people online I haven't checked the chat for a moment, but I know we had at least one question from someone online, and so I want to make sure we are addressing a few of those, and then we'll come back being cognizant that we are 10 minutes away from 7. And you use that what time?
But Addie's point about the state of murder in what are the claims?
So, to paraphrase for you, because I know it's pretty hard to hear, the question was that, the comment that was made, just as, and, talked about missing and murder conditions of women and the risks that it's faced now and, that it is exacerbated by man camp. And so what are we doing to address those concerns, or how are we contemplating addressing those concerns? This is not the first time that we heard those concerns, and we're very aware of that.
I've had the pleasure of being city manager now. Time there has been literally a complete redevelopment of the park. And in fact, every year see the accreditation. And the only city municipal police department in Alaska that is accredited. And in that accreditation addresses how things are investigated, how operations makes reports. So previous history of the Nome Police Department will never occur again. Under the current chief, the 460 cases that were not properly resolved have been resolved. When we lost Florence to the city that still looking to find her, we here within the next day or so. And the FBI and the city continue at Alaska through their missing individuals. The person's Lonnie Foya. We're still looking for her. And we're looking for anybody that has been lost. You know, they're very sympathetic. The police department is rebuilding and it should hopefully be at full strength by the time this project starts, so that there is sufficient. We're also working on the homeless. We had a meeting yesterday and today. In fact, before I came to the meeting a little earlier, we were talking about housing, housing for people who would not be displaced by the port development project, and that there would be additional available for those who may come here and currently join our community, part of that community. So a lot of these questions and concerns are already being looked at. Being looked at by the planning commission, being looked at by the port commission, and Joyce said, I go to that, and that is required to be posted and public. There are no private meetings. So whoever told you that, I'd love to know who that is. That person is incorrect. All the meetings of the city council are public. And people ask, why do we have to put the city council meeting? Things overall are running fairly smoothly apparently, because if not, we have people in the council chamber. Just like we had when COVID, we had 100 and some people in that room. The reporters are here. Mr. Knight, who was here, covered KNOA, and Deanna covered it from the WA. So, sorry, I did that all. But I'm feeling, they want to cover the my doors all open. Now I don't make time. And on Saturday. So anybody has any concern, please come and talk to us. We want to hear it. We want to make sure that gossip isn't your information. This is a small thing.
Thank you.
Let's get that one, let's get that one check to make sure there's nothing.
Austin, I think you have a lot. One thing I was thinking we're going to address, the thing and we're going to for kind of for that concern and directly related to some of the things that we have been talking about, and the comments that you're making tonight will help to bring this issue to further on the list of things that we how do we communicate this concern to the people who are coming from the community to meet the full doing this contract. We got talked about, we got the government. The tribal leaders, city working with the tribal leaders to develop material that educate those workers who are coming in that, you know, this is an accusation, but this is different side of the community. And they're the community on how this is coming into this community to do this work will conduct themselves. And that's a sensitive thing. I didn't want to do that with the higher peers and just remember it. So that is something that's in development. And I don't think we talked about it recently, but again, help us to bring it to. I know we're gonna go back here, I just want to get the virtual number for 10 minutes and I'll come back.
I think for those in the room, we need to come up to the microphone. We're getting a lot of people saying they can't hear online, so please come up if you got a comment and stand in line, I guess.
That's easier, you can be the crosswalk. We did get a comment very early on from Brian Hunt, who asked, will all rock be hauled? It is coming. No, or will some of it be barged in? I think we addressed that a little bit in the meeting. Hard to envision the amount of 777 that it would take to haul armor rock, if not. So I think we addressed that in the meeting. We wanted to.
Yeah, we anticipate using both barge and by road. And we've had that confirmed by our contractor.
Just making sure I'm not missing any. Brian Hunt also asked, when and how will the 95% drawings be available to view for bidding purposes? That's,
Wait, what? I didn't hear that one.
so when and how will the 95% drawings be available to view for bidding purposes?
Well, the 95% will be available for bidding purposes when the RFP comes out on sam.gov. That's where the final RFP will be found. That includes all the design, etc. When? Oh, that'd be October. Thanks.
All right. See how this works if you just talk loudly into the mic. Then hopefully you don't have to come all the way up to the podium. Okay.
Hi, my name is Billy. I actually attended the government conversation. And I don't say I was disappointed because the leaders got flying out, right? But you only give them 15 minutes to speak. That is not enough time to present what you have there and heavy damage in their community. That's all. A lot of it has to do with systemic racism, a lot of it has to do with poverty, a lot of it has to do with lifestyle being invaded. We talk about, you know, many of the type of leaders when I attended the HR consultation, they were very disappointed and upset because we had a bunch of the federal government, state government, and the like. But then you have the tribal government sitting below them with all the trust funds that represented the people that were being murdered or that have gone, that have been selected children that have been hurt or sexual assault victims. And so there's a very different representation that happens amongst government to government. One issue here I know is that I'm certain there's still not a protocol for MRID. Is there? Is there a protocol yet for NMIPs and flood what don't done the fee?
The already policy for the police department are being redeveloped, and yet there isn't a effect. Not yet.
Give you, I want to focus on that. What the intent of the meeting is for, we can talk about how to handle it. If you would like to have.
I would, or they would have.
This
Played.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to camp though on the beach because for implementing an entity built her. They built her. And no, this department does not have the capability of finding more MIT. They do not. And so when you have all these outsiders, when you look at the traffic, you look at that map, it's going to blow up with more traffic. How does NPD plan to help MIT when we're going to have sex trafficking, we're going to have a crime rate skyrocketing? How do they plan to handle that? That is a huge concern. It's scary to think about. Indigenous, I'm scared. And I'm sure I asked other people in this room, which I'm still going to do because it wasn't advertised. I'm sitting there being more people here at this meeting with better advertised. I am terrified of this project. I'm terrified for the people around us, all the women, because people that we can create and even and people keep saying over and over, every Lawrence's case, literally, how many times was their investigation turned over? 6 times, 7 times? And then at one of the NPD officers came out and they said, why would I come out here and help one of your people when I better do an account? I will never forget those words. Women are going to continue. And that's a fact. It might not be next year or the year after, but it will happen again. And we'll see a lot of work done again. And this project, it is going to be horrible because all the primary stuff happens. And so, plan to handle that. Can I get an answer? I'm good, sir. We've had a lot of time to think about this project into it. The NPD saying we're short staffed, we're short staffed, we're short staffed. And so you think about the crime rate and you know it's a huge issue. How can we struggling? You know what is this? Have you guys contacted outside in the region besides home? It's really sad. This is a visual representation of how it was very non-exclusive and very exclusive, actually. Just, I think this is a very representation of this project.
So thank you for those comments. And I do just want to address a couple of things. Yes, we have contacted all of the directors in the region. We have been contacting them and providing them information throughout, recognizing that when we do go up, we approach these works list to produce most of the data information, but it is in these meetings that we hear when those notifications, those invitations don't get to the right place, and we need help. Right, and this is what we're here to do, is to make these connections, to talk with you and improve. And so we reach out. They are invited. I do want to address before I hand it over to address the NFPA or missing aspect that the Army Corps of Engineers have never held a government on this project in Anchorage. So I'm curious what that meeting was, because I would never hold a. Okay, good. Okay, good. I had a moment, and I was trying to think funny because I didn't want to hurt, but it was like, I do not think about government chairman meeting and stuff. So. Yeah. Yes, no, most definitely.
And that is a conveyance of where you're sensing right now and we're trying to improve. My preference for government is always to do it on your land, in your area, in the area of the project. On that, but, you know, I just wanted to make that clear and like why I had to face that. And you said that because I didn't understand. So, and then you want to take 2 seconds before? Just brief, I would like to say that, okay, I think one of the things that we recognize tonight in this conversation, is that there is a lot of concern that the community and part of the community needs to talk about and address on this project that may not be directly related to the course involvement. And so we are happy to be a conduit for these conversations in the meetings that we're having here tonight, in future meetings. But you know, that is something I think that we can take and look at from this meeting and our notes and take away that there's still a lot of work to do. And again, as we heard before, we're happy to facilitate that. You're both members of the-
I'm an outsider. I'm not from Alaska. I'm from. Transported before I got to see substantial progress in the 4 years. When I came here, we were having 120 seconds. And for a community this size, it should be. Policy there was 120. By improving the police department, it dropped to 60 last year. Still 62 minutes. Right now, and by the way, I meet with the police chief every week. We talk about how we can better serve and how the department can better serve. Feel safe. Everybody should be able to be safe in this community. Right now, we are at 12 for the month. Fortunately, 4 of them were broken of children. So if you look at where we're going, we're going to be 30 cases this year. 30 is still too many. I want to make sure everybody knows the common council mayor. This budget now exceeds what we give the school district each year. In fact, the budget for the police department and the school district exceeds what we take in. That is how much money given to improve our schools, to give our children a good education, and to provide safety for everyone. Our falls are down. We want to continue this trend, and we want to make sure that trend is dealt with. So I ask anybody here, if they have any questions or concerns, please come and I will factor that in, especially when we're dealing with potential savings for the day.
I just want to address quickly one element of the discussion from the lady in the back row. As far as the advertisement for the meeting, the board got us a flyer, and I know we post for radio stations, Facebook, and Nome. And if there's other occasions we should be doing that, and we're going to have a meeting, we need to know what those. Because those are the standard ones that we post for regular meetings, with the exception of the nugget, unless we're having a special portion of the regular meeting. So, by all means, let us know if there's another thing or location that we can put it to get the that too. And we'll send it to certain corporations and just Yeah, just let us know, because if we're dropping the ball, I mean, we're getting the media outlets, including the social media outlets and the website, the city's website. I'll go off somewhere and let us know the class is there too.
I will add it, send out invitations to the event. Okay, I go. Oh. I apologize, I'm a little crazy, I'm trying to manage all the facilities here and there, so. Try to get everyone back around.
Hi, my name is Alex Thompson. I'm a recent transplant to this area. I actually came up from the lower 48, like a lot of people, and I came up last summer and I was welcomed into this community. It's been an honor to be a part of this community, and I really learned a lot. I'm the deputy harbor master. During the winter time, I was over at the police department. And I would like to say that this person, they take that very seriously. It has been a problem. They are aware of it. The other thing that's come up is the lack of ability to find recruits to the police department who are indigenous. We have 2 people in the dispatch center who are indigenous people, and they are huge assets and resources. We rely upon them every single day for their deep knowledge of the families and the histories. And so I know for a fact that they would love to have an interaction with the tribe to see if we can get somebody, anyone from the tribe, to come and be an officer, because it's a huge asset. We are out in history, we are new to this area. So the 2 people that we rely upon, they do provide us with a huge amount of information and understanding about the interactions, the relationships between the different people here that we just don't know. The other one is I see a lot of the outlying villages who are heavily reliant on the shipping of the port. And so when I look at it, I do understand that, yeah, the salmon, the wildlife that I've seen, I saw the belugas doing in the harbor, it's beautiful. Understand that that is very, very important. You cannot disrupt these activities. There's a large group of people who are surviving the winter with the food they harvest. And if there's the food isn't there, they're not. It's going to be a problem. But so the question I would always arise is, how do we support the outlying villages without expanding the port's ability to do that? We are really juggling every single day at the port during the shipping season of limited time to try to get all the landing craft in and out. And the landing craft are almost always exclusively service villages. So that is something that we would love to discuss more, that we'd like to give more information on. And honestly, if you know anyone who interested in joining the law enforcement community or being a member of the dispatch at the Nome Police Department, we heavily suggest you go in and talk. There is a hiring board, and they posted we want officers, we want dispatchers. I worked a lot of overtime this winter to fill the hours. There's definitely openings there, and the resources that the indigenous local people provide are things we're not going to be able to provide. Again, I want to thank you all very much for welcoming me to this community. It's been a pleasure.
Anything in the chat? I thought it them first on. And again, for your rock star, seat break.
My name is Floyd Walker. Born and raised in family. Going over there. So they're not. Yeah, kind of boards and roads. So one problem like now we're going to do the same thing. I mean, we're not. She It's and where did this for the on? I'll see. Okay. Sales on.
Thank you for your comment, sir. I don't know, Jason, we want to speak to the current, the flow, of the current. I know that our operational maintenance does 50/50 on the current flow and this facility, so we also did that as well. Is that a further question?
Yep. We'll respond. So you go with my bill. Okay.
He's closer to the mic. You can get it.
So there have been some studies that looked at the current fields for the various port projects. And we are also going to be looking at doing additional current modeling and sedimentation modeling for the phase 2 portion of this project, where we're looking to deepen the outer basin and establish the deep water basin as well. So I can look into what current studies have been done and get back with you about those. I don't know the details for all of that off the top of my head, but I can get back with you.
Probably more in the advertising. Probably go to 10,000.
Paraphrasing here, the tower is that the longer that the cities will have further disruption of the flow and current, and so just wanted to know how we're setting that, and what we're doing to create a public we can get back to it. Recognize that we are over 20 minutes of your time, but also the importance of the conversation. So if everyone is okay, I know we got 2 more hands up.
We'll get to those two people and then do a final check and, close out the meeting. That's all right, everyone. I'd like to try to get everyone's questions tonight.
I'm going to take more. Windows 2009. Question is around the application for the. Let me know if we're here. What slow happens here or what impact was that?
Thank you, that's a great question, and I see that Mike Rouse is convenient, they love that. So, we have her to get, and typically what happens in these consultations and in these coordinated efforts, if there's concerns, if there's reasons why they would not provide us a permit, we work with the agency to mitigate or ameliorate whatever doing the musician or musician in order to find a way to make sure that you're can to mitigate whatever was the concern, so that the permit is, it can be provided.
Additionally to that. Without getting that.
Without having the IHA in place, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the IHA that would, without the IHA, you can't go to construction. You can develop it as far as design goes.
So the question was, is if we do not get the I would not happen, and that basically, as a federal agency, we cannot break federal law. And so it is a federal requirement that we have this permit prior to construction. What Jason is alluding to is that this phase we're doing right now, design, we can complete that. That would be impeded, but yes, that is a legal requirement. There are several statutes and environmental statutes that we must comply with that require us to either have certain permits or finish certain processes. And so, yes, we would.
I just had another question. So this 85% design, correct?
Correct.
And my understanding and my insight is that proper consultation with community members and tribal members hasn't been fully reached. Or are you happy with where it's at? Like, that's my question is the goal to actually properly engage with tribal members, tribal government, and community members?
So, I mean, Kendall spoke to it earlier that we have met since what, 2018 on this. We have a list of meetings in the plan of cooperation of when those meetings were held, who attended, what was discussed. We'll continue to have them moving forward as part of a partnership between our organizations, but that doesn't stop.
And my concern is just that, like I could look back and I know just from like personally being involved in these conversations, following this project since I've been a little kid. Opposition to this court step. Larger communities and our indigenous people. So if we like continue consultations and continue to media, the majority for expansion, what is your response then? Like, kind of like we plan to go on this project because like there isn't my like there hasn't been proper consultation, there hasn't been free prior informed consent. Through a very like small amount of people. So what do we do if we
So a couple of things, and then, Jason, sorry, please chime in. One thing that I want to point out is the years of conversation, that have gone on with this project, is there is a with the community on the project, that addresses the discovery of cultural remains, during construction. And so we have been working to find a way to address the concerns that you heard at that. Comment that there have been, and there likely are more cultural, objects remain as well as ancestors within this area, and you're very cognizant and are aware that you need to be very careful when we do activities around the port. With with the tribal leader, in the community, in relation to how easy is it to stop a project, based off of and government, and people say we don't want. So the Army Corps of Engineers projects are complex in that they are not one federal agency coming in and saying, we want to do this, we're going to do this. For the Army Corps of Engineers to be involved in a project, there has to be multiple different levels and layers of involvement. One of those is a sponsor, a local sponsor. Usually those local sponsors are multiple entities within or a city or municipality. We also partner with tribes across the state and several Army Corps of Engineers civil projects that are partnered directly with tribal nations. But part of how these projects move forward is through the acquisition of funds, which comes from Congress. And so Congress makes a decision as well. So the national government makes a decision as well on what projects they choose to fund. We can develop projects across the state and take them to certain phases of understanding or development. But unless Congress decides this is something that they want to fund, but we have many projects that are sitting on the shelf because they're ready to go, but Congress hasn't funded them. Part of the complexity of when I say the yes or no, but I just provided like the context of the complexity of the question. It's not just the Army Corps of Engineers saying, yes, you can say we're done. It's a partnership, it's a coordination at many different levels. And so part of why we're here, part of these meetings, is to share that information with you so that as you're communicating your fears, as you're communicating your concerns, as you're communicating, comments, that communicate them abroad, right? We are one place that we will hear, we can take with you what we can with the comments, but we encourage you also to communicate professional, communicate broadly that you have concerns that you desire that this topic not, and then I'll hand over to the others.
But going to respond to the language. The city is currently working with the tribes on Westlope, Canada, and Solomon to come up with a formal in which to a couple of weeks ago, Councilmember for us, the Department of Justice, and they don't call it missing persons. And so we have got information
just agree in providing justice through cases. There's an over. There and the resources are available. I don't know if the community is in our community. The troopers are the National Guard. We definitely have thankful of all. Searchers for participating. Also, as was alluded there, widening of the Snake River was done. Shameful. It wasn't pork. Yeah, but it wasn't. Actually, were safeguarded in the museum for a period of time, and then also some were so on. I can't speak to that, but I know the city is before the election. And then, yeah, I don't like. So other departments. And they reference to old show, no something else, show on for all the things. And producer, so that show that we're probably good. So chance with them on that, history with it. You know, for working.
Like, again, I'm tired of speaking up already. Good evening, my name is Jessica Ivanoff, native village of Euclid, but I reside here in Nome for 17 years. And I want to thank Nome for taking me in, as it is home away from my homeland in Euclid. Now I see this news release by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, May 3rd, 2023. The city Facebook site, I believe, is May 10th.
Today is May 17. Last minute, I want to thank Abby and Mossa for putting it out on Facebook. That way I could attend here this evening to listen to all these concerns we all have. This is our land. With that being said, have we mentioned as a community, Murdoch? What's gonna happen with infrastructure if we have a Murdoch again? These things, permafrost, have these been arising in your discussions? This is Alaska. We are considered part of the United States, yet the shipping, the handling, the cost, the food, inflation, have we considered this as a community? These are my concerns, because I have children that are coming up. The grandchildren coming up, I should say, or you have children that are already up in age. But these are my concerns. Murdoch, permafrost, shipping, maritime. We all know drugs that are coming in here in Nome. Nome is such a small community. We all vocal, but yet, yes, we do not attend council meetings enough to voice these concerns. So my question to the engineers, now I did drive by those tank farms the other night and I saw this big black thing, and I'm sorry, this is not my verbiage, nor my field of study, but I saw these tires around this black, huge, whatever it is that I saw a picture of there. Now, is this already established here? No, for the port?
I'm not sure what you're speaking about.
I think it's the buffer that we showed a picture of. Yeah.
So Yokohama's up in AML's yard.
Oh, okay.
That's used for the tankers offshore.
So the answer to the immediate buffer was that's what they use for anchors when they are offshore and goes side by side. The other question I'd like to just get you to address Murdoch and the permafrost.
Yeah, so real quick too, nothing's been procured for this project at all. It won't be until the contract is awarded. As far as Murdoch, I would say that we were designed for bigger storms, like a life-changing big storm. Bigger than Murdoch. And I would say that your permafrost and your ice have been definitely considered. We have models, but we also have we have the engineering, we also have models that go into defining that thing. Anything to add, Merlin, to that?
Yeah, I think you've got it.
Okay.
And we can. You know, that is really interesting. What we need to address is that talk of the mechanics needs to be supplemented with how this community is affected from the following on land. We're hearing about trash, we're hearing about sewage, we're hearing about hotel, road and land. And we want to cut out some. We have seen how Americans would. And that was not a pleasant experience. And we have seen it lived through. Would like to have that experience again, especially
with small children. We are looking at report, and I drive 6 miles to my home on a gravel road. And that is the all roads that you can take from there. Those roads are not designed for industrial traffic. They dust all of us into oblivion. And that needs to be considered, and that needs on the table right now, while there still might be there's a lot of issues that need to come out. If you don't get affected, here's here, but people give us on the docks, on the missing and murder and victims' persons. And the land camps and the police that have make large like on that. But I don't know how we can be having this optimistic view of the board when we cannot handle prices. And many of the prices that we have, the total prices currently. So there needs to be a much bigger discussion with the affects the young, the young, the great water, and how people because of the employee. And yes, I'm all doing but I'm still excited here. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And I said at the beginning of the meeting, the pleasure that it is to be here with you in a community meeting of why we're having this meeting is to hear from the community. It's not only to inform you of where we're at, to give you updates, but also to be within the community. Here, and this is your home, and many of you. So those are important. So we will have conversations about how in our next communication we can focus more on the concerns and provide some information. I will add again because the federal government it is federal government requirement. Some of the reasons why we're not providing great details, some of the concerns that you are bringing forth, such as details on how dust will be cut down, details on some of the man camp restrictions and requirements, is that because of where we're at and because we're close to putting the contract up for bid, some of this information becomes difficult for us to put certain parameters on because some of it will be related to how it's contracted. And that doesn't mean that we don't have ideas for parameters. It just means that we can't discuss them because it could give an unfair advantage to someone who might want to bid on our projects. So it's not about us not having communicate them with the community. It's simply that we have federal requirements and laws that restrict us from saying these details, because it would appear that you give undue advantage to potential contractors. That being said, we hear you. We know that these are concerns. This is not the first time any of these concerns have been brought to our attention. And that doesn't mean we can't take what we heard tonight, brainstorm, and come up with potential ways that we can communicate and provide you with the information that you have requested this evening. Jason, Joy, you guys want to make any final comments on top of that? Now that I'm not, I know that there's not a screen that I turn my screen. So I thought we would like to jump right in front. The camera was right there. I just want the people on the virtual realm to just be looking at that. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for sharing. Much of what was said tonight is very emotional. And it comes from deep places that take great courage.
to talk about and to bring forth in these kinds of conversations, particularly when, you know, there are many of us in the room that you don't know. We come on, you know, when we can, we come right here, but we live and work in Anchorage. And so I appreciate the honesty, I appreciate the strength in sharing all of your concerns and all of your comments. You know, we had, I know we were taking notes, but we have people on the virtual room who were taking notes diligently. We have recorded this, it will be posted on our website so that other people who may not be here tonight can see it. And again, I will say from perspective of being a tribal, recognize the other government obligation. That's not kind of time grades where we. So please feel free if you feel we're not speaking to your community, if you feel that the community is not being heard, to reach out to me. And I will make sure that we are doing our due diligence and doing what needs to be done, that we can do under our authority.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing. And like you said earlier, lots of ways to make your comments heard and express your concerns, whether they're together in an email, council meeting, board commission meeting, knock on the door, try to book a meeting with Glenn. He's not always available, but he will always find a way to fit you in. Meeting with the mayor, council members on the street. We're always available at some point in some fashion. And we're always, you know, wanting to hear and listen. But as she was saying, you know, we've been doing this for a number of years and holding council and commission meetings and announcing milestone progress. But so we touched on a number of the concerns last, well, we can't say 20 years, we've been working on it. We touched on the concerns for the last several years. Different people express them, different groups. Then next year, you got a few other folks that have concerns. The door's still open, but we have been talking about these things, and we are at 95% migrating into 100. So looking at the project at the stage, because I live and breathe this, hard to comprehend that we're about to go 100% and put the project out of business on. Yet there are some people that feel that their concerns haven't been heard, and we still want. If that's where the core goes, or that's a problem, I mean, that's in the federal world. If that happens, the city can only be a partner to the board and see where things go with that. In the base of putting this together, send out in the public view on the table. And we're still open to concern. Let's talk about them. Let's get the answers. I know that's the plan, but let's get specifics. But let's find out why people still think we should cancel. I mean, those are hard discussions I thought we would have had back in the feasibility study and the concept, and we did it. But we need to go back to that because we didn't capture the concern. I guess I'm confused, but I am open to. Please tell us what your thoughts are. Speak to any of us. Lots of folks at the city, council members, court commissioners. My cell phone's on the website. You can stop by the court office and Lucas is there. You can call him. I don't want to be there for us, but we're open. Our ears are open and we're easy to find.
Right, that continue online until we come for it. Thank you to those who are still online with us. And again,
Thank you for your time. We took a lot of extra time, but, you're really going to be with us this evening and have a wonderful meeting. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Thanks, Fern.
Thank you.
Thanks.